If I were to ask you who is the first human being to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, we'd all know the answer. The answer, of course, is Charles Lindbergh. But if I were to ask you, okay, who is the second person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean shortly thereafter, none of us would have any idea. Plot twist, it was Bert Hinkler. But here's where the story gets really, really interesting. So we know the first, we don't know the second. But if I were to ask you, who is the third person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, you know who that is? That's Amelia Earhart. And what's interesting is we've all heard of Amelia Earhart. So why is it that we've all heard of Charles Lindbergh and we've all heard of Amelia Earhart, but we've never in the world heard of the second, Bert Hinkler? And the answer is actually quite interesting. And the answer has everything to do with what's called schema theory, or if you will, the world of mental models. Because what happened is when Charles Lindbergh flew solo across the Atlantic Ocean, at the time he did something that no human being had ever done before. So he took our mental model, our schema of the world and how the world works and what is possible, what is not possible, and essentially he broke that schema. He showed us that there's a completely different way that reality can work that kind of, well, in today's vernacular, blew our minds. Okay, so what about Bert Hinkler? Bert Hinkler flies across the Atlantic Ocean solo, blows our minds again? Maybe, except he doesn't. And the reason why is because what he did is not disruptive to that mental model, but rather confirmatory. So then why in the world do we know about Amelia Earhart, beyond, of course, the tragic and mysterious disappearance of her plane over the Pacific? Well, we know about Amelia Earhart because she also did something first. She was not just the third person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, but at the time, she was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. And at the time, of course, that again was something that, at least for the people in the world of the time, that was also mental model breaking. And it forced us to restructure in our heads the art of the possible. Why does all that matter? Because it shows you the power of an idea, of a message, of an insight that can actually reframe, that can actually deconstruct and reconstruct a mental model. So if we want to stand out, if we want to be sticky, cognitively speaking, then don't be a Bert Hinkler.